Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. Really excited for the guest that I have on. He's got a unique thing that he's doing. I want him to talk about it and share a little bit about it because it's really to help men, help dads, help husbands, all those good sorts of things. And that's what this show's about: is helping dads, husbands, men get better for not only for themselves but for their families. You all know that. But my good friend Clay Garrett is joining me on the Dad Up podcast. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to have you on. Excited to dive into a little bit about what you're doing. For my viewers, listeners who don't know who you are, let's touch base on a little bit about you, and then we'll get started on obviously Campfire Gentleman.
All right. So,
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to catch you off guard. Just yeah, little premise about who you are, kind of
okay.
all that kind of stuff, and then we'll go from there.
No problem. I, uh, I grew up in Texas in just like a small town. My parents are both teachers. And so it's a farming country kind of. And so both of my grandparents owned small farms. And so I grew up around, you know, tractors and fishing ponds and cattle and I spent a lot of time actually it both sets of grandparents just kind of wandering around in the pasture by myself, picking up sticks and hitting things, and it was just this really simple and obviously a lot of times boring kind of life. But I think that's probably where my appreciation really for that kind of life eventually comes from. The
Right.
simplicity of the values that I have and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, that's kind of
So
my life.
fast forwarding it to now, I mean, you have wife and kids. How many kids you have?
I have two kids. I have a 12-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter.
Okay, so
So,
you're right in the thick of parenting then, because 12 and
yes.
10, yeah, you got some dynamic changes in both of them going on right now, which is always exciting for parents to go through,
Oh, yeah. Lots
and
of
for
mood
them.
swings.
Yeah, for them. Well, that's cool. Let's talk a little bit about what you're doing now. I mean, you've got, tell me a little bit about Campfire Gentleman, what it means to you, why you started it, what was the purpose behind it, what's the premise, like all that kind of stuff, and the meaning behind it for dads or for men in
Oh,
general.
okay. Um, it all kind of started really back during COVID.
Mm,
And so back then, I'd been working for 15 years and I was designer for corporate marketing. And like a lot of people, I got laid off during the pandemic. And before that
mm,
point, I was doing all of the things you were supposed to do. I was, providing for my family. I was climbing the corporate ladder, that sort of vision of life. But it all kind of came to an end with the whole shutdown. And it was really disorienting because that whole structure disappeared and suddenly there was no structure.
right.
And, but it became clear after a week or two, that this was going to last a while. And so I embraced the whole slowness of everything and I could suddenly I was doing these things and making time for things I couldn't before. Like I was
Hmm.
having breakfast with my wife, outside in the garden. I was playing video games with my son. I was playing video games with my younger brother. We'd never done even, none of that. And my dad has a wood shop. He had recently retired. And so I was spending a lot of time just hanging out with him, building stuff. And when the world opened back up, I felt like I'd been given this gift of time with my family. And I was like, I don't really want to just go back to that grind that I was doing before and to this in this vision of life I'm not even sure I want anymore.
Mm,
And so I set these clear parameters of what I was looking for in a job. And uh, so I found a job and sort of returned to somewhat of a normal life, but it was a hybrid position. And so I was coming home every day at 1 o'clock. So I was available to pick if something happened, I could go pick the kids up from school. I could take them to a therapy session or whatever they needed to do. And it wasn't this big thing where I had to ask off. It was a very flexible position. And so that was, like I said, that was the only type of position I was going to take. And then that all of that sort of set the stage for what became Campfire Gentleman 4 years later.
Mm.
And what happened with Campfire Gentleman was I it was just a sleepless night. It was, like 3 o'clock in the morning, can't sleep. I'm in the kitchen looking for something to eat or whatever. And I can see the glow of my computer in the room next to me. So I go sit down at it and open up a blank Google Doc and I just start typing stuff with like no plan, just this stream of consciousness. And it was, I thought if I could get all this stuff on my mind onto paper, so to speak, I could maybe go to sleep.
Right.
And, and so I spent like 10 minutes just, writing. Then after I was reading over it afterwards, and there was a line in there and it said, I'd really like it if my work helped people. And I just sort of thought, like, how long have I been thinking that and not, you know, knowing it really? And
Mm.
what would I even do? And what does that mean? What can I do to help people? And so I went to bed and woke up the next morning super excited. And so I went through I spent that was probably November. So I probably spent the next 2 months just exploring ideas about what I could do. And I just kept coming back to how different my life was before and after COVID.
Right.
And I was like, what did I do? What did I, yeah, what changed? And I kept coming back to these 5 principles or these 5 pillars of family, purpose, health, growth, and simplicity. And I had a big list of like 20. Eventually, I was like, this is actually this. And I just sort of narrowed it down to where there was these 5. And that became the pillars of Campfire Gentleman. And I didn't, and it's primarily a newsletter.
Okay.
And I developed the newsletter because I liked reading email newsletters, but most of them are either business related or they're business related, sort of masquerading as something else. And so none of them exactly hit, a lot of them hit a few things I wanted to read about, but none of them hit everything I wanted to read about. So I was like, there's got to be more men like me that aren't really that interested in, you know, 10x in their sales and having an awesome LinkedIn profile, And so that's like, and so I was like, I'll just write the newsletter that I wish already existed, and I'll just pray to God somebody else is interested in it. And so I put it out into the world in May of this year, and it I started off slow, and then the past 2 months probably it just sort of blew up, and I was like, whoa, I did not expect it to get that big that quick.
Mm.
But it and like I spent a month building it up kind of through social media because I'm like, I don't it's going to be a tree falling in the woods if I don't, sort of
Right.
promote it a little bit. And I think there were 50 people on the first email, which I expected. 5 or 6 really is what I expected. I was stunned it was that much. But
Wow. Well, that's cool. And so it's essentially a news. How many newsletters do you send out like a week? Is it like once a week or is it once a month?
I send 2 a week, and
2 a
so
week.
the first one is kind of a longer read about a specific topic. It generally going to fit in one of those 5 buckets of health and family and all that. But and it's like I said, it's a longer deep dive. It's one topic, one article, and
Okay.
then I'll send one out on Thursday that usually has 4 or 5 different stories in it that are shorter and they're sort of kind of related to the overall topic from the Monday newsletter.
Oh, that's awesome. So I mean, you've built it around really around helping men lead um, with purpose in their,
Mm-hmm.
for their not only in their homes, but in their careers, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? One of the things that I wrote down because I was thinking about this when I was thinking about Campfire Gentleman and what it really represents. What do you think most men get wrong about what true leadership is and true strength is when it comes to being, in the home? What do you think most men get wrong about that today, and how can they start kind of shifting their mindset?
One thing I think that they really get wrong is that, and I was guilty of this too, is thinking everybody but them has some manual and they haven't got it figured out. Like like everyone else is doing it right, and I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm screwing everything up.
Okay.
And so most men end up, because they think they're doing it wrong, they end up sort of isolating, at least not talking about that part of it with other people. And if you talk with other men, because I get emails all the time from other guys that are like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm like, most people don't know what they're doing. They're uh taking educated guesses, and when it doesn't work, they try something else.
Right.
And and I think when you talk about leadership, I think a lot, a good leader is someone who has a plan that they're willing to change when it clearly isn't working, instead of just banging at it over and over again. And so I think that's a lot of what people get wrong about leadership, is they think the strength is in almost the hard-headedness of a plan or an idea, or something like that.
Be willing to be flexible, obviously, is important when it comes to leadership. Being willing to, not only that, but something that is very difficult for men to do is being willing to admit that, hey, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that way, or I need to fix it this way, or it's just not going the right direction, and I need to shift my direction or my mindset into a different direction. And
Yes.
a lot of men have trouble with that, admitting something is wrong. And so if there's something that's wrong in your life as a husband or as a dad, the first step is admitting, hey, I'm wrong. I need to change this. I need to go a different direction, and I need to fix it. And that's probably something that, your newsletter does help with, is helping men kind of make that shift.
Well, I was, as you were talking, it made me think about, we have this with my family. We have this thing where, we eat dinner as a family, and then afterwards we usually just go watch like some half-hour television show or whatever for the
Right.
kids, just to waste a little time and have a little family time together. And we started about a month ago, and we've kind of ran out of all of the shows that I had planned for them to watch. We've kind of burned through them all. And so my daughter was insistent that we watch this YouTube series. And I was very much like, we're not going to sit around and watch YouTube as a family. This, it's a dumb idea.
Well, she
But
wanted to watch data podcasts. I got it.
yeah,
Got
yeah, exactly. But she was very upset that, and it made me, I realized she was upset because I wouldn't like give her a chance, not because, you know, and so I
Right.
was like, you know what? She's right. Like, I'm not even really listening to her on this. And so that's what we did. We've been watching that series for a week, I think. And it's a fun little series, but that's, at first I was very much like, we're not doing this. And I was inflexible.
So you were willing to make that shift. That's
Yeah.
cool. And have you gotten a lot of response? I mean, obviously you got the people that are reading your newsletter and
Mhm.
stuff like that. What has been the overall response from men in general, as far as, your newsletter as a whole, and then also maybe you making a shift in certain areas of the newsletter? Maybe there's like, hey, could you do more about this or more about this topic? What's kind of been the response for that?
Well, the email, a lot of the emails I get are from guys that kind of feel, so, have some emotional response to what I'm writing, and they're like, and they respond to me, and they're like, there's no one in my life I feel like I can tell this to.
Mm.
And so you're saying something I can relate to, but not something I feel like I can speak about to anyone.
Hmm.
And a lot of it, it's because they feel like no one will listen to them.
Yeah, or no one will take them seriously, or no
Yes.
one, or somebody will think it's a stupid idea. So it's the fear of being rejected
Mhm.
in that way, and that's one of the weaknesses that sometimes men face, is the fear of rejection. And yeah, I could get that. I could see that. So what has been your response to that?
Well, it's funny because usually I'm like, I always, a lot of these guys are going through a lot harder times than I've been through. And so I always sort of feel a little like inadequate to respond to them. And so a lot of times I just tell them, man, it's awesome that you're gone through something so difficult and you just keep going at it. Like,
Right.
it's easy. I could imagine it would be easy to give up on something like that, but you're pushing through, for your family. Uh and so, and I'm, a lot of times that's what I tell them is just good on you for keeping on going. And they just usually they respond with, wow, thanks for listening. I get a lot of the emails that are just like, wow, I can't believe you responded. Actually, I appreciate it. And so a lot of times there's not a problem I can solve. There's just support I can give.
Right.
And they react a lot to, that's a lot of the reaction is just, wow, I can't believe you listened.
It'd be amazing. I've experienced that too. I've had the podcast now going on, shoot, 6 years, and to think that I've coached a lot of dads. I've had a lot of dads reach out to me just with, a question. And then, like I said, there's been dads that I've actually coached through, a series or
Mm-hmm.
through a time frame. And it's amazing that through all the advice that I give or the tools that I give them to use, what they really, really wanted the most was just somebody to listen and a support system that they needed because they don't feel like they always have it. I mean, listen, men live this kind of rigid life where they have, their family that they take care of, right? They have their wives that they take care of, they have their kids that they take care of, or they're part of taking care of,
Mm-hmm.
and then they have their careers, and it's kind of this rigid life where they go from one thing to the next between, going back and forth between, home life, career, home life, career,
Mm-hmm.
home life, career, and it's just stuck in this kind of this, mouse wheel. This is just
Mm-hmm.
rat race of just kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And they've just felt like they're not growing. And sometimes they just need somebody to reach out and say, "Hey, I support what you're doing, and I'm here for you if you need to talk." And I do that all the time. I have
Mm-hmm.
men in general that I've become close friends with over the last 6 years, really close friends with, and I may have not never even met them yet because of Zoom, through social
Mm-hmm.
media and Zoom. There's a ton of people that I haven't met, but I feel like we're like best friends. And I reach out to them all the time, like, hey, I just want to check in, see how you're doing. As a matter of fact, when we get off this podcast, there's one person that I know of that I'm going to reach out to because I haven't talked to him in a few weeks, and I'm going to reach out to him because he's got a lot of changes going on in his life, and I just want to make sure he's hanging in there and doing okay. That's all I'm doing. Like, I'm not here to offer him advice. I'm not here to say, hey, you need to change this or change that. I'm just here to say, hey, I'm here to support you. If you need to talk, let me know, but I just want to check in on you. Sometimes, men, that's all we need.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we just need somebody to go, hey, I'm here. Just so you know, I'm here. I'm thinking about you, and I want to check in on you. And I could see your newsletter being that support system for them.
Yeah, and it's a lot of like my original plan was to make everything sort of this article that has something actionable, pull something actionable out of it that you can do. But I mean, and a lot of them are that, but a lot of them are just like, here's a story you can relate to, or here's something I'm going through, and if you're going through it too, message me and we'll talk. And
Right.
so, I like then when you talk about how it's changed, like that's one thing it's changed is I've pulled out some of the it's got to be actionable ideas and
Right.
turned and made it more, hey, this is like you said, support some of these guys. It's like I know there's got to be other men going through this or have gone through this thing that I'm have been through, and so if you're feeling it, let me know. And
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And I think when I think about actionable things. I think about, small daily habits that
mm-hmm.
men have. And, you talk about it, through Campfire Gentleman, you talk about
Yes.
it that these small daily habits that build, strong family connections. Give me two specific ones, maybe routines
Mm-hmm.
or moments that you've had in your own life that has made a big difference for you.
Sure. So one thing I do with my wife is every day we have this thing that we picked up from a marriage seminar called the temperature check. And
Okay.
it takes about 5 minutes maybe, and it's just 4 or 5 questions. And so I mean the first one is like, what are you grateful for today? And so you just go through these 4 or 5 questions, and back and forth. And it's just this, you know, life can get hectic. I mean, and so it's just this daily check-in. So at least you've spent a 5 minute conversation with your wife before you went to work, or or before you went to bed or whatever. And so that's something we make it a point to do. And and also you think that after I've been married 15 years, you think after you've been married 15 years, you know everything about your wife.
Right.
But no, but you'll learn something in those 5 minutes, that you spend with her doing a temperature check and asking her what she's grateful for or what she's looking forward to or what was hard today or whatever.
Yeah. And I think about I mean any others as
Yeah.
far as
Now uh with my son in particular, he has trouble falling asleep. And so we started doing this. We've been doing it a while now. This thing where he lays down and then I sit down with him, and for 10 minutes he can just talk about whatever he wants to talk about before he goes to bed. And and a lot of times he'll say something. I'll be like, "Well, go to bed." He'd be like, "No, it's my 10 minutes. I get to talk about whatever I want."
right.
And so he'll tell me about stuff at school, or he'll tell me about some goofy science experiment he saw on YouTube, or something history lesson he learned, and or whatever. But for 10 minutes he can talk about whatever he wants, and I think that's helped him settle down a little bit and go to sleep and get all that pent up energy out and stuff he's wanted to, because on the way I'll ask him how he is. I'll ask both my kids, how they are on the way home from school. My daughter usually gives me some like range. She'll say I'm on a scale of 6 to, of 10, it was a 6 today. And
Right.
my son will just say fine.
Right.
But he'll talk
Good.
yeah, exactly. But that 10 minutes at bedtime, he'll tell me about his whole day that he wouldn't tell me on the ride home from
Well,
school.
that's because he's saving it up for that
Yeah,
10 minutes. He
exactly.
doesn't even want to use it all up. No, that's awesome. I think when it comes to our marriage, shoot, I mean, you've been married 15 years. I've been married going on 30, 28 years. And no, 28 years in, as far as our marriage goes, we've been together longer than that, but 28 years in, I'm like, I still don't know everything I need to know.
Right.
And those temperature checks are awesome. I think like one of the things that my wife and I do, we like to do, we have an actual, she's a licensed therapist that we go and see. And we call her our marriage coach. And we do that on purpose. We do that. There's genuine purpose behind it. And that purpose is to continue to strengthen our relationship even though it may not need it at the moment. There may not be anything going on that we need to really talk about. Sometimes we go into these sessions and our marriage coach would be like, "So what do you guys want to talk about today?" I don't know. We're good, actually, but let's just talk. And it's crazy when we sit down and do that, the little things that start to come out and we go, okay, we need to work on this. We need to work on this area. We need to work on this area. And even being together for such a long time, it amazes me, and I'm sure it amazes my wife as well, but there's still stuff that we have to continue to strengthen. And it's important. So I think the temperature checks is a good idea. And then when it comes to your son, I mean, I think about it selfishly as a dad, and I'm picturing I have two boys, and they're older now. They're 26 and 24, but I'm picturing doing that with them when they were younger, and I think about it selfishly. I think, okay, this isn't his time to get everything out that he wants to talk about. This is my opportunity to bond with him. This is my opportunity to grow and strengthen my relationship with my son. And so, yes, I'm listening to everything he's telling me. I'm soaking it all up. I'm telling him what I think, or if he's asking me advice, I'm giving it to him. But for the most part, this is my opportunity to just strengthen my relationship with my son. And I think for you and your boy, I think that's a great tool to continue to do. Now, he's 12 now, so when he gets to be about 16, 17, he may not want to sit there and do that anymore. But there's other things you can do. But I think for when it comes to our kids, one of the coolest things that we can do as parents, and this is something I've told dads for a long time, like when I think about small daily habits that you could do, you may not have to do it daily, but small little habits that you can change right now as a dad. And one of the things that I tell them all the time when they ask me things like that, what's something I can change that really just strengthen my relationship with my kids? Ask your kids how you're doing as a dad. And depending on their age, if you ask your 3-year-old or 4-year-old, they might say, you don't take me out to get ice cream enough. So they not give you a silly answer. But you ask your 12-year-old or your 10-year-old daughter, how am I doing as a dad? Please be honest with me. They're going to tell you, and they're going to be honest. And guess what? There may be something in there you don't want to hear, but there may be something in there that that you don't want to hear, but should hear, that you need to change. And it's crazy how much better your relationship as a father can be with your kids just by that simple question. How am I doing as a dad? And guess what? I'll take it a step further. Ask your wife. Ask your wife, how am I doing as a father for our kids? I challenge you, Clay. Ask your wife that today. Say, I really want to know from your perspective, how am I doing as a dad? And let her tell you. It may be good, it may not be good. But you know what? It's going to be whatever it is, the hard truth, and you can make the changes you need to make, and create new small daily habits that you need to create in order to strengthen that role that you have as a parent and a husband. So you can ask her that as far as being a husband to her as well. What can I what how am I doing as a husband? You know, it's crazy. I mean, those simple questions go a long way, and you'll be surprised at how honest your kids and your wife will be. So, anyways,
Yeah,
that's my little tidbit for the day.
well, one of the questions in that temperature check is, do you have a complaint? So,
Got it. Okay, so you got to be prepared for that. So when you ask your wife that, is it more of the, because if I ask my wife that, I'd be like, do I need to buckle up for this? Or am I is it just minor? You know, that's how I'd be. I'd be like,
right.
is this something I need to buckle up for and be prepared for, or what? But no, that's a great question. I think that's awesome.
No, it's a complaint with a request for change. So not only do they get to complain with, they have to give you an idea of how to change it, how to fix it. And
Okay.
so you don't get to just complain. You also have to have a solution.
And you got to be willing to hear it.
Yep.
So you as husbands got to be willing to hear it, because that complaint may rub you the wrong way, and you got to keep yourself in check and be like, okay, she's allowed to tell me this, and she's allowed to make a request on how I can change it, and I have to keep I got to keep my own temperature down. If you get
Yes.
my drift, right? I got to keep my own temperature down so I don't lose control. Let me ask you this. Many dads, they face, like you faced a major career reset, right? You were laid off and you faced a major career reset or life reset. How do you personally define success now? And how can men themselves um, give permission to grow in the new direction without really feeling like they're losing their identity? Because I think that's important.
Well, the way I define success now is, like I said, with those actual five pillars, like, and
Okay.
they're in order. And so, I define if I'm a good father and a good husband. If I feel like I'm doing something meaningful, if my health is good, if growth, I do a lot of, I read a lot, and I sort of use simplicity as this filter for the other four. And so I look at it and say, am I overcomplicating this? Am I, is if am I getting in the is I have stuff getting in the way of these? Can I get rid of these things? And so
Hmm.
simplicity is sort of this filter I run on all the rest of them to make sure that it's all doing what I want. It's the things that are my priorities actually are my priorities, and not some big complex thing that's getting in the way of them. And
Got
so
it.
I really try to examine, like I said, what I, how I like those daily activities and things like that. Is that my connecting with my family? As my I always think, with kids, it's difficult to know in the moment if you're doing a good job, because a lot of times, you don't know how well of a parent you were until you see your kids with their wives and their husbands and their kids, and you're like, oh, that lesson I taught them when they were 12 kind of seems like it kind of worked.
Hmm.
But so, like, in the moment with my kids, I'm like, if they still want to talk to me, if they still want to hang out with me, my son really likes to just go on errands with me, and he'll tell me about the road and all, like, this is an exit ramp and this is an access road. And I don't know why, but he's just obsessed with road construction. And so, but like if he still wants to hop in the car with me when I run to the grocery store and talk to me or whatever, then I feel like in the moment I'm doing a good job as a parent. And if I don't get too many complaints with requests for change during the temperature check, I'm like, I'm doing okay with my wife. I feel like, but so those four pillar or five pillars are how I kind of define success now.
And
And
I didn't mean to cut you off. You
no,
change them based on how you think you're doing on each one. So if one of them is a little off center, you'll make sure you make that a little bit more of a priority to kind of correct it.
and I like to sort of like intermingle like health. Like I like to like it's all we've started going to the park. After school, I'll pick the kids up about 3 times a week, and we'll just go to a park for about an hour. And so we'll take the dog for a walk. And so I get to kind of combine family and health, all together. And so I like to do things like that where because it keeps it simple
Right.
when you get to sort of intermingle things and kind of get it all, And so that's how I like to do it.
No, it makes
And
sense. No, that makes sense. Um, well, that's awesome. I think what you're doing is great. I think what you're doing is helpful to men. Obviously, if I didn't think it was something that was beneficial to men as far as being dads or husbands, I probably wouldn't have had you on the show. I mean, seriously. I mean, my team, we vet people out, and when I came across yours and I was kind of sharing it with one of my team members, I was like, this guy I think has it figured out as far as how to help other men be better. And like I said earlier in this episode, kind of like along the lines of my show. My show is really just to help men be better, not only in their personal lives but in their relationship with their spouses and in their relationship with their kids. And if I can just help one dude be better, I think I've done a good job. And so I think for you, along the lines of the newsletter, something that men can really grasp onto and come back to, and help them to be better as far as being husbands and being dads. So I think what you're doing is great. If my listeners or viewers wanted to look you up, learn a little bit more about you, or maybe check out the newsletter, where's the best places for them to do all that stuff?
at campfiregentleman.com. And that's with an A, gentleman.
Awesome.
And,
Campfiregentleman.com is where they can get all that. And social media links. Are you on social media as far as
yes, it's
okay.
all Campfire Gentleman there too. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook.
All right, cool. Well, I'll make sure that we put all those links in the show notes. But Clay, thank you very much for being on, brother. Thanks for sharing what you're doing. I think what you're doing is awesome. Keep it up. And if you were ever in Southern California, let me know, and we'll break some bread together. Otherwise, if I'm in Texas, I'll make sure to let you know. But I appreciate you being on,
Sure.
and I look forward to staying in touch with you.
Thanks for having me on.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, it's been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend Clay Garrett for being on. Make sure you guys are going and checking out Campfire Gentleman. You can do that in the links below in the show notes. All the links are there as far as the website and his social media. Make sure you're giving him a follow and letting him know how he's doing. Check out the newsletter and see what you think. And if there's something that maybe you think needs added to the newsletter, let him know that too. He's always looking for ways to improve it. And it's only to help you be better as men. And it's not just for men. Wives can read it too and know how they can make their husbands be better, not only for themselves but for their kids. So make sure you're doing that. And listen, if you are not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.